Here's something nobody mentions during a routine physical. The low-fat diet that dominated the last 40 or so years might be one of the biggest nutritional missteps of our lifetime. We cut the fat, and inflammation didn't go down for a lot of people. It went up. We cut the fat, and heart disease never actually disappeared. It just changed shape. We cut the fat, and somehow ended up with more brain fog, more joint pain, and more people quietly wondering why they feel worse than their grandparents did at the same age. Meanwhile, thousands of years before anyone owned a blood pressure cuff or knew what cholesterol even was, entire civilizations were eating fat constantly, deliberately, sometimes even pouring it over sacred altars as an offering, not because they were careless, because it worked. Today we're going back to that table. 8 foods, most of them pulled directly from the pages of the Bible, carrying exactly the kind of omega-3s and healthy fats. A modern plate quietly leaves out. A couple of these might genuinely change how you think about fat for good. And stick around for the last one, because it ties this entire list together in a way I didn't expect when I started researching it. Quick note before we dive in. This is general information, not medical advice, so check with your own doctor before making any real changes to your diet. Number 1. Cheese and curds. Let's open with a food that shows up in the Bible, less like a delicacy and more like a care package. In 1 Samuel, when Jesse sends David to check on his brothers at the battlefield, he tells him to carry 10 cuts of cheese to their commanding officer as a gift. Later, in 2 Samuel, when David is fleeing during Absalom's rebellion, a group of supporters brings him supplies that include cheese made from cow's milk, offered specifically because he and his people were described as hungry, weary, and thirsty out in the wilderness. Cheese, in other words, was recovery food. Imagine getting a care package of 10 blocks of cheese instead of a text that just says, "Thinking of you." Different times. Here's something that might put those stories in a whole new light. Archaeologists have found direct evidence of cheesemaking going back more than 7,000 years, and in Egypt specifically, actual surviving cheese residue was discovered in a tomb dating to roughly 3,200 years ago, meaning cheese wasn't some clever new invention in David's era. It was already a genuinely ancient food by the time these stories were written down, with a food preservation pedigree stretching back further than most of us can really picture. Cheese is essentially concentrated milk fat and protein, made by separating the curds and letting the moisture drain away, the exact ancient method still used today, just refined with modern equipment. That concentration is what makes cheese so calorie and nutrient-dense in a small serving, delivering a meaningful amount of calcium, protein, and vitamin B12, a nutrient a lot of older adults become deficient in over time, as reduced stomach acid production makes it harder to absorb from food. That's one of the quieter reasons doctors sometimes recommend older adults keep more dairy, eggs, and fish in regular rotation as the years go by, not less. The fermentation involved in making many traditional cheeses also introduces beneficial bacteria similar to what you'd find in yogurt, which can genuinely support gut health in cheeses that are aged or cultured rather than heavily processed. Because cheese is concentrated dairy fat, it does carry a notable amount of saturated fat, and in many varieties, a significant amount of sodium too, so portion size actually matters here, especially for anyone managing blood pressure or cholesterol. A modest serving a few times a week, rather than a large amount daily, lets you enjoy the real benefits without overloading on saturated fat or salt. As far as gifts of encouragement to a tired traveler go, cheese has genuinely held up well across the centuries. One helpful detail: harder, aged cheeses like Parmesan tend to be naturally lower in lactose than soft, fresh cheeses, since a lot of the lactose breaks down or drains away during aging. A reasonable option if you're somewhat lactose sensitive but still want the flavor. A small amount grated over vegetables or a bowl of soup goes a long way, giving you the calcium and flavor payoff without needing a large serving to feel satisfied. Number 2, olive oil. From a care package to the fat that runs through literally the entire Bible, start to finish, olive oil. Priests were anointed with it. Kings were crowned with it. The lamps inside the temple burned on it around the clock. Even the name of the Mount of Olives tells you how central this one tree was to daily life in ancient Israel. An entire mountain named after it. Here's the part that's less about tradition and more about pure chemistry. Olive oil is one of the richest natural sources of monounsaturated fat anywhere on Earth. The specific kind of fat that helps lower the bad cholesterol in your blood without touching the good cholesterol you actually want to hold on to. Decades of research out of the Mediterranean, where olive oil has been the primary cooking fat for thousands of years, keeps landing on the same pattern. Communities that lean on olive oil as their main fat source consistently show noticeably lower rates of heart disease and stroke compared to communities relying on butter or heavily processed oils. Now here's the fact that genuinely surprised researchers back in 2005 and still surprises people today, a finding significant enough to be published in the journal Nature, one of the most rigorously reviewed scientific publications on the planet, which is not exactly where quirky food trivia usually ends up. Extra virgin olive oil carries a compound called oleocanthal, and it turns out oleocanthal blocks the exact same inflammatory pathway in your body as ibuprofen, the actual over-the-counter painkiller. That distinctive peppery burn you feel at the back of your throat when you taste a really good, fresh, extra virgin olive oil? That's oleocanthal triggering the same receptor that liquid ibuprofen triggers. Researchers estimated that around 50 grams of a good extra virgin olive oil, roughly 3 to 4 tablespoons, delivers an anti-inflammatory effect equivalent to about 1/10 of a standard adult ibuprofen dose. It's gentler, obviously, and it's not a replacement for medication when you actually need one. But for someone dealing with everyday joint stiffness or low-grade inflammation, drizzling real olive oil over vegetables, bread, or soup isn't just a flavor choice. It's doing something. Here's a practical shopping tip worth passing along, because not every bottle labeled olive oil on a grocery shelf is created equal. Some have been diluted with cheaper, less beneficial oils without most shoppers ever noticing. Look for a bottle marked extra virgin, ideally in dark glass, that protects the oil from light, which gives you the best shot at getting the real thing with its full nutrient profile intact. And once you get it home, store it in a cool, dark cupboard rather than next to the stove, since both heat and light break the oil down faster than most people realize. Number 3, almonds. Now, here's a story tied to one of the strangest miracles in the entire Old Testament. In Genesis, when Jacob sends his sons back to Egypt during the famine, he tells them to carry a gift for the powerful stranger they're about to meet, and almonds are packed among the items, treated as something valuable enough to serve as a peace offering. Later, in the book of Numbers, Aaron's staff is the one that miraculously buds, blossoms, and produces ripe almonds overnight, out of all the tribal staffs laid before the Lord, as a direct sign of God's choosing. Here's a fact that trips up almost everyone the first time they hear it. Almonds aren't technically nuts at all. Botanically, they're a seed hidden inside a stone fruit, in the same family as peaches and cherries. What you're actually eating is the kernel from inside the pit. Somewhere along the way, language just decided to call it a nut anyway, and it stuck. Peaches, of all things, are close relatives. The two plants are almost genetically identical, just bred over centuries to make different parts of the fruit worth eating. Nutritionally, almonds are one of the better sources of healthy fat. you'll find in a small package. Most of the fat inside is monounsaturated, the same heart-supportive fat found in olive oil. And almonds are also one of the richest natural sources of vitamin E, an antioxidant that helps protect your skin and cells from everyday oxidative damage. Research has shown that a small daily handful can help lower LDL cholesterol, the kind that contributes to clogged arteries, while also delivering magnesium, a mineral a lot of older adults run low on that plays a real role in muscle function, nerve signaling, and steady blood pressure. Here's a detail almost nobody knows. That thin brown skin on the almond isn't just there for looks. It's where a large share of the antioxidants are actually concentrated. So buying raw or dry roasted almonds with the skin still on gives you more benefit than the blanched, skinless kind sitting in the baking aisle. If you want to soften the texture, soaking raw almonds overnight in water is an old trick some people swear by, though it's entirely optional and comes down to personal taste. A small handful with a piece of fruit makes an easy snack, and slivered almonds work beautifully scattered over vegetables, salads, or a bowl of oatmeal. The one real caution here is tree nut allergies are common and can be serious. So if you've never eaten almonds regularly, or if anyone at your table has a known allergy, that needs real respect, no exception. Beyond that, almonds are about as close to a perfect small fat as nature has produced, small enough to carry across a desert, valuable enough to offer as a diplomatic gift, and apparently miraculous enough to sprout out of a wooden staff overnight. Number 4. Quail. If a budding staff feels like a strange miracle, wait until you hear this next one. In Exodus, and again in Numbers, the Israelites are wandering through the wilderness, openly complaining about the lack of meat in their diet. And God's response is almost absurdly literal. Enormous flocks of quail, migrating birds, drop low enough to the ground from sheer exhaustion after their long flight that people could simply walk over and gather them by hand. No hunting required. For a group of former slaves with no livestock of their own, this was an unexpected, almost overwhelming source of real animal fat and protein. Here's where the science actually backs up the story, in a way that's kind of wild to think about. Common quail are tiny, we're talking 6 or 7 inches long, a few ounces, with a wingspan you could measure with a ruler, and yet they're capable of migrating thousands of miles a year, including punishing non-stop crossings over open sea and desert. Researchers studying quail migration along the very same eastern Mediterranean and Sinai routes described in this story have documented birds arriving at the coast, so depleted of fat reserves that some genuinely don't have enough fuel left to keep flying. In other words, this isn't poetic exaggeration. Exhausted quail dropping out of the sky after a brutal migration is a real documented phenomenon in this exact region. Thousands of years later, it's one of those rare moments where an ancient text and a modern field study point to the exact same physical event, just separated by a few thousand years and a very different set of research tools. Nutritionally, quail meat is leaner than most red meat, but still carries a reasonable amount of healthy fat for its size, along with a notable amount of iron and B vitamins, particularly B12, which supports nerve function and red blood cell production. Because quail build up fat reserves specifically for long-distance flight, that stored fat includes a modest amount of omega-3, similar reasoning to why wild game tends to carry a healthier fat profile than heavily grain-fed farm animals. Here's an honest question. Have you ever had a food so convenient it required zero effort, because it basically fell out of the sky in front of you? That's this story, minus the part where someone still had to pluck it. And the wilderness account isn't really a warning against quail itself. It's a reminder that moderation matters, even with a food that was quite literally a miracle. Quail is less common in everyday grocery stores than chicken, but it's usually available through butchers or specialty markets, and it cooks fast because of its small size, typically roasting or grilling in well under half an hour. The flavor sits somewhere between chicken and a milder duck, richer than a chicken breast, but not overwhelming, which makes it approachable even for people who've never touched a game bird before. It's also naturally portion controlled, since one quail is roughly one modest serving all on its own. Number 5. Sesame seeds and tahini. From one of the biggest provision stories in the whole Bible to one of the smallest ingredients on this list. Quite the demotion, but stick with me. Sesame is one of the very first crops humans ever deliberately cultivated in the ancient Near East, grown and traded for its oil long before olive trees ever dominated the landscape. Archaeological records place sesame farming around ancient Israel and Mesopotamia, going back thousands of years, and sesame oil was one of the most commonly used cooking fats in kitchens across the biblical world, valued for cooking and also worked into ointments and perfumes. Quick fun aside, some etymologists believe the phrase "open sesame" from the old Alibaba folktale is a nod to the actual sound a ripe sesame pod makes when it bursts open on its own. A tiny plant with a genuinely dramatic party trick. Ground into a paste, sesame becomes tahini, a staple that still shows up on tables across the Middle East today in dishes like hummus. Sesame seeds themselves are made up mostly of healthy, unsaturated fat, along with a solid amount of plant-based protein, which makes them more filling than most other seeds their size. They're also one of the better plant sources of calcium, genuinely relevant for anyone focused on maintaining bone density as they get older. Here's something most people have never heard of. Sesame seeds contain two unique compounds, sesamin and sesamol, which function as antioxidants and have been studied for their potential to help lower cholesterol and reduce blood pressure with regular use. There's also early research suggesting sesame's fat profile may support healthy blood sugar regulation, relevant for anyone managing pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes. Working sesame into daily meals is genuinely easy, sprinkled over bread, stirred into a salad dressing, or eaten as tahini, spread straight onto toast or blended into a dip. The one real caution: sesame is officially recognized as a major food allergen, so anyone with a known sesame allergy needs to avoid it completely. For everyone else, this tiny seed carries a surprising amount of nutritional weight for something so small. If you pick up a jar of tahini, keep it refrigerated once opened, and don't panic when the natural oil separates and rises to the top. That just means it needs a good stir. Not that anything's gone wrong. A spoonful of tahini whisked with a little lemon juice, garlic, and water makes a genuinely simple sauce that works beautifully drizzled over roasted vegetables, and it's a far gentler way to add healthy fat to a meal than reaching for a heavier, more processed dressing. Number 6. Eggs. Time to clear up one of the biggest food myths of the last 50 years, and it's been sitting in your fridge this whole time. Eggs actually make an appearance in the Book of Job, one of the oldest pieces of wisdom literature in the entire Bible, where Job asks whether there's any flavor at all in the white of an egg, using it as an example of something completely bland on its own. Centuries later, Jesus references eggs directly in the Gospel of Luke, asking his listeners which father, if his son asked for an egg, would hand him a scorpion instead. It's used as a simple, familiar symbol of basic, trustworthy provision, the kind of thing a parent just gives without a second thought. Here's the myth part. Eggs have spent the last several decades unfairly blamed for cholesterol problems. They were never actually responsible for causing in most healthy people. The fat inside an egg yolk is a genuinely well-balanced mix, and the yolk also carries choline, a nutrient essential for brain function and memory that a large share of adults simply don't get enough of, along with lutein and zeaxanthin, antioxidants that help protect your eyes over time. Here's an honest one for you. How many years did you personally avoid egg yolks because someone told you they'd wreck your cholesterol? Current nutrition research has largely walked back those old blanket warnings, and most major health organizations now agree that for the average healthy adult, an egg a day fits comfortably into a balanced diet without meaningfully raising heart disease risk. The protein in eggs is also considered one of the most complete and easily used protein sources in any food, which genuinely matters for older adults working to maintain muscle mass. The one group that still needs an actual conversation with their own doctor is anyone with existing heart disease or a specific cholesterol condition, where dietary cholesterol has been personally flagged as a concern, since individual response really can vary. For most people, though, this small, humble food that Job once used as the literal definition of bland turns out to be one of the more nutritionally complete items on this whole list. How you cook an egg actually matters more than most people realize. Boiling, poaching, or gently scrambling preserves the nutrients far better than frying at high heat in a lot of oil, which can create compounds that partially cancel out the benefit. A soft-boiled or poached egg over vegetables, or a hard-boiled one kept in the fridge for a quick snack, is one of the simplest, most nutrient-dense small meals available, and it takes only a few minutes to make. Number 7. Olives. Here's a fruit we mentioned a few minutes ago that deserves its own spotlight. The olive itself, not just the oil. Before olives were ever pressed into oil, people were eating them cured and whole, straight off the tree. And that habit stretches back further than almost any other food custom in the region. The olive tree shows up as a symbol of peace and renewal throughout Scripture, most famously when the dove returns to Noah's Ark carrying a fresh olive leaf, the very first sign the floodwaters were finally receding. Here's a fact that surprises a lot of people. You cannot actually eat an olive straight off the tree. Fresh, unprocessed olives are intensely, almost unbearably bitter, thanks to a natural compound called alurapane, and they need to be cured in salt, brine, or water for days or weeks before they're edible at all. Every single olive you've ever enjoyed went through a deliberate transformation process first. Ancient households figured this out through pure trial and error, probably several thousand years before anyone understood the chemistry behind why it worked. Eating the whole olive gives you something the refined oil actually leaves behind: fiber. A small handful of olives carries a meaningful amount of dietary fiber, along with vitamin E and a collection of plant compounds called polyphenols that act as antioxidants, helping protect your cells from the everyday oxidative stress that contributes to aging and chronic disease over time. Olives are also naturally rich in monounsaturated fat, the same heart-friendly fat found in the oil, just in a lower, more naturally portion-controlled amount. Since you're eating the fruit instead of drinking pressed fat by the spoonful, there's one practical thing worth knowing. Before you grab a jar at the store, most cured olives are packed in a fair amount of salt, since brining is how they've been preserved for thousands of years. If you're watching your sodium for blood pressure reasons, rinse them before eating, or look for a lower sodium option. Beyond that small adjustment, olives are a genuinely simple ancient snack that still holds up perfectly well against anything modern nutrition science has to offer. If you're new to eating olives regularly, it's worth trying a few different varieties before deciding you don't like them. Green, black, and the smaller Kalamata style all have noticeably different textures and flavor intensity, and plenty of people who dislike one kind end up genuinely loving another. They keep for weeks in the fridge once opened and need zero preparation, which makes them one of the easiest healthy fats to always have on hand. A few olives with some cheese and bread was a complete, satisfying meal in Bible times. Honestly, it still is today. Number 8. Figs. And now, to close things out, the single most peaceful image in the whole Bible, the fig tree. Sitting under your own vine and fig tree gets used again and again throughout the Old Testament as a picture of safety, prosperity, and genuine rest, a household finally at peace, with nothing left to fear. Figs are named right alongside olive oil and pomegranates in Deuteronomy's description of the Promised Land, and in the New Testament, Jesus uses a fig tree that fails to bear fruit as a pointed teaching moment about the gap between appearance and substance. On their own, figs aren't a major source of fat the way olives or nuts are. They earn their spot on this list because of how they were traditionally eaten, dried, and pressed together with nuts, seeds, and a drizzle of olive oil, forming a genuinely complete, balanced small meal without a single processed ingredient involved. The fiber in figs, especially dried figs, is substantial, and that fiber slows down how quickly sugar enters your bloodstream, which actually helps the fats eaten alongside them get absorbed and used more steadily instead of all at once. Figs also carry a solid amount of potassium, which works to balance sodium in the body and support healthy blood pressure, along with calcium, genuinely unusual for a fruit-making figs. A quietly useful addition for anyone focused on bone health as they get older. Even the small edible seeds inside a fig carry a tiny amount of healthy fat themselves, a detail almost nobody thinks about while eating one. Here's the one thing worth knowing. Dried figs are concentrated in natural sugar once the water content is removed, so portion size genuinely matters if you're managing blood sugar or diabetes. A couple of dried figs eaten alongside a handful of nuts, the old-fashioned way, remains one of the simplest and most satisfying combinations on this entire list, and it happens to be a pretty accurate picture of what real peace looks like. Sitting quietly under your own tree, eating exactly what the season actually provided, nothing more complicated than that. Fresh figs, when they're in season, have a completely different texture than the dried version, soft, delicate, with a much milder sweetness, and they don't keep long once ripe, so they're best enjoyed within a day or two. Dried figs, on the other hand, keep for months and travel well, which is likely part of why they became such a dependable staple long before refrigeration ever existed. And maybe that's really the thread running through this entire list. Every single food we just walked through, from a block of cheese carried as a gift to this quiet little fruit named as a symbol of peace, was never about chasing some exotic superfood. It was ordinary food, eaten with intention, doing exactly what your body needed it to do the entire time. There's something worth sitting with here. None of these 8 foods needed a marketing team, a fancy label, or a shipping container from the other side of the planet. Cheese carried in a care package. Olive oil pressed by hand and poured into temple lamps. Almonds sprouting from a wooden staff overnight. Quail that quite literally fell from the sky. Sesame ground into paste, older than most nations. An egg job once used as the definition of bland. Olives that had to be coaxed out of their own bitterness. And a fig tree that became shorthand for peace itself. The people who wrote these stories down weren't nutritionists, and they definitely didn't know what omega-3 meant, but somehow they kept landing on exactly the foods modern research keeps circling back to, thousands of years later, with lab equipment they never could have imagined. Maybe that's not a coincidence. Maybe it's just what happens when people pay close attention to the same land, the same ingredients, and the same table for generation after generation. If one of these 8 genuinely surprised you, I'd really like to know which one. Tell me in the comments. And if you're the kind of person who enjoys watching ancient wisdom hold up against modern science, this channel's going to have a lot more of that coming. So consider subscribing so you don't miss it. Thank you for spending this much time with me today. Sitting through a full list like this isn't nothing. and I genuinely appreciate it. Quick reminder before you go. I'm not a medical professional, so please run any real changes to your diet by your own doctor first. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.